Lieutenant Colonel Kenneth B. Jorgensen, United States Army Air Corps, World War II. Folks, Ken is one of my P-38 fighter pilots. I've got other fighter pilots from World War II, and this is an amazing story from Omaha Beach on D-Day. We don't hear hardly anything from the air, so he tells us what it looked like from the air as the troops were landing on June 6, 1944. Ken served with the 394th Squadron, the 367th Fighter Group. He was commissioned an officer at the age of 22 and flew many missions, and served 31 years in the Army Air Corps, retiring in 1972. I interviewed Ken in Colorado Springs, March 6, 2004. It's been over 19 years, coming up 20 years now. Ken passed away 2 years later in 2006 at the age of 85. So I've got a great story here, folks, on Voices of History YouTube channel, and I'm just so thankful for having the opportunity of meeting Ken and his wife. I want to thank Jay Sandstrom. Jay, look in this camera. Thank you, sir, for your continued support of my work. Thank you for making it possible, Jay, for others to hear Ken's story, to hear it and to listen to it. It means a lot. I appreciate your service to our country and helping me with these stories and your passion for our veterans, Jay. God bless you. Thank you. Folks, I'd like to encourage you, yes, you, to sponsor one of these stories. It's a feel-good project. It's a noble project. These stories become, I think, more important in time. You know, with every page of history lost, these stories become more important. We need to reach our younger generation, folks, because embedded in these stories is why we're free and why we have our freedoms. Amen. So I thank you for those of you who are supporting and sponsoring these stories. There's information in the video description below the video on larrycapetto.com, my websites. Click on Sponsor a Vet and look at all the faces of the veterans that I have on there. They're not all there, but there's some of them. Include the name of the veteran in your sponsorship, and I'll get working on it. So, okay, folks, if you'd like to donate to this work, there's information in the comment section of the video. And I must again announce that Voices of History Radio is now broadcasting 24 hours a day. I started this because I know a lot of people like the audio version. This is perfect for somebody at home, a housewife, a student, a truck driver, commuting to work, you know, doing the dishes, taking a shower. It's in my hand all the time on my phone. I just hit the app and I'm listening to my veterans talk. Such a great way to supplement what we're doing here. I know a lot of you binge watch these videos. Well, try Voices of History Radio. You can download the app at the Apple App Store and at the Google Play App Stores. It's right there, folks. Or type Voices of History Radio, or Voices of History. Just type that into the Google or the Apple App Store, and it'll come up. And it's a free download. I want to get this in the hands of our kids, folks. I really do. History is best learned from those who were there. This is at their fingertips, in the palm of their hands. Like I said, if I was a history teacher, I would be giving homework assignments. Download the app, listen to some of these stories, and turn in a book report. What a great way of sealing that. Amen. Okay, so I invite you to continue watching these videos, subscribe to this channel, share these videos, and I would please encourage you to tune in to Voices of History Radio. Give it a try, okay? God bless you, and thank you for watching. I'm just going to mainly be asking you questions about your experience leading up to D-Day and D-Day itself, and your part that you played there on Omaha Beach. But just Ken, what do you remember about D-Day? I mean, preparing for D-Day? Where were you, and what was the anticipation of the group you were with, and how were you preparing for D-Day?
Well, we were at Stony Cross in England, which is north of Bournemouth, probably 40 miles. And the unit that we came over as replacement, the first replacement pilots, because the unit that we joined had trained for single engine only. When they got over there, and here they saw all these P-38s, and none of them had ever flown a twin engine before. So they were not really ready for combat, I'll tell you. So some of them were sent to a P-38 outfit over in 8th Air Force, and the commanders there said, "You're not ready for combat. Go back and get some more time in the airplane." So in my case, I came over there in about the end of February, first part of April, and we had probably about 100 to 150 hours of P-38 time under our belt, because we went through Williams Field in Chandler, Arizona, where in advanced flying, we had the RP-322, which was a P-38 that England rejected because it didn't have superchargers. Couldn't get the altitude. So they let us fly those in cadets. So we had about 40 hours in a twin engine type P-38. We call it RP-322. The same. We had a lot of experience with that. And then we graduated, went up to Concord, California, and here are all these P-39s out there. So we got the same surprise. Here are all these single engine jobs. We thought we were going to get P-38s. So we flew them in November and December. And then we went down to Santa Ana Air Base, where they had the P-38s.
Now go back over into Europe now. Tell me about Europe, getting ready for D-Day. Where were you, in England?
Yeah, we were in England at Stony Cross, like as I said, north of Bournemouth.
Okay, tell me about the night before D-Day. What were you doing? Do you remember? Did you have a briefing? Did you have a breakfast that morning? Tell me about, and then tell me about your taking off towards the beaches. So.
Well, the night of the 5th was highly, highly secretive. And we didn't really know. We saw all those airplanes, C-47s, towing the gliders incessantly all night. And they were dropping the paratroops over to the Mariglis area. So we were painting those stripes with the crew chiefs, and it was dusty and windy, and what is all these 5-gallon cans of black paint and white paint for? Well, we were told that they are going to be for identification, because we were going to do the low-level support with the P-38, because number one, we'd have those stripes on there, and the sailors were told not to shoot any airplanes down that had, we call them bumblebee stripes. And also, the P-38 was the only airplane that didn't look like anything that the Germans had. So from a standpoint of identification for these Navy guys, you know, they were brand new in the military also. Don't shoot us down. We were just above them about 20, 30, 40 yards.
Go ahead and sit back.
And
okay.
So that's what we did the first thing in the morning, very early. We started flying these support missions, and it was windy and low clouds, and we're sneaking in underneath the clouds, and each one of those ships out there that were offloading into the smaller Higgins boats for landing on the beachhead. They had a cable going up and had a barrage balloon tied onto the end so people could see them, but who could see the barrage balloons when they were sitting there in the clouds? So we'd come in and we had to look for that cable And that was pretty dangerous stuff. If you hit a cable, you can just, lot of damage, or even end of your flight. So then we'd go in and then strafe the beachhead and skip bombs into the German pillboxes on the beach there, and then pull up and go in over the land and try to go in farther than where we knew our paratroopers were, and interdict any the Germans had that were coming to help out their own people. St. Lo, for instance, was just absolutely a rubble after we got through with it. Then back to England, above the clouds, rearm, refuel, back again, down on our knees, and here the Higgins boats were then landing pretty good, but so terrible.
It's okay. Just take a second here. Could you see from the airplane what was going on down on the beach?
Oh, yeah.
What was going through your mind? I mean, you had to be focused on your flying because you said it was tough. It was tricky flying around the barrage balloons and those cables, but I mean, I'm assuming you flew over early in the morning when those first waves
Oh, yeah.
went in and there were all the casualties on the beaches.
Yeah.
And
then all day, too.
okay, now from an airplane, now realize I've talked to a lot of men that were on the beach, but I haven't talked to many pilots. I mean, aren't you going pretty fast? How can you actually see, you know, what's happening down there? Because
You can see more than you think. And what the problem was, it was the casualties and those anti-landing things that the Germans put up there, in boats crashing into them, and then the red. The waves red with blood from our people.
You could see that from the airplane?
Oh, sure.
Now, you were flying over Omaha Beach, right?
Mainly Omaha and also Utah.
Were there... Tell me about your squadron. How many took off in your squadron that morning? Or your formation? How many?
Well, we'll be taking off in separate echelons, so you could keep a continuous coverage out there. From one flight, say, of 8, generally we had to spread up into 2 flights of 4 because you had to sneak through those barrage cables. And when we were done, then another one comes in to relieve you. So it's just like a relay all day long.
Were you in radio contact with each other? Was there a commander, a flight leader, or what?
Oh, yeah, your own flight leader, yeah.
So, do you remember any of the communications, or was there much communication? I mean, I don't know. As a civilian, what did you hear? You see movies and stuff, you know, but were you talking a lot? Was there a lot of talking on the radio, or just?
Well, mainly. What are you going to hit next? You know, I just hit that pillbox. You take this one over to the right. I think I saw one that comes on the radio. Then you go over maybe 40, 50 feet, get another pillbox.
So you were strafing along the beaches, and then you would go inland and drop bombs, you said? Or would you...
Yeah, you want skip bomb.
Tell me what you remember about the Omaha Beach area now. Did you have a specific target, or did you just randomly pick a pillbox? How do you know what to shoot at? I mean, or...
Well, we had flown 2 or 3 days before, several times reconnaissance up and down, way over to Calais to sort of disguise for the Germans. But we were looking at everything. But we knew basically where we were going to land. So we take a real keen look at what was above the cliff there and what was in the water. And we'd go when the tide was out, so you get a good look at all these A-frames that are out there. So
now those German fortifications on the beach, I hear they are reinforced with concrete. They are really...
They were, yes, and iron and wood and you name it.
Do you, you flew over twice, did you say that day? Or did you keep doing it all day long?
Well, all day long, yeah. Probably went about 4 to 5 times.
How old were you then? About 20, 21 maybe?
No, I was an old timer. I was
How
born
old?
in 1921,
Okay. So you're
so it
about
is 44, so I was about 23,
So
yeah.
you're an old guy, huh?
Old, yeah.
But still, you're very young. I mean, how do you stay focused on, what you have to do, and yet having to deal with the fact that you're seeing a lot of bloodshed? I mean, what do you find yourself doing in the cockpit? Are you praying? Are you cursing? Are you just silent? I mean, what are your thoughts? I mean, how do you stay focused and keep going? You just know you got to keep going, right? Because you couldn't help those guys.
Well, what you're doing is trying to do the best you can to help them down there. Number one is knock the Germans out, their equipment and whatnot, and do all the strafing and possibly that you can, and before you run out of ammo, and you have to go back to England and load up again. But it was a fight for survival, I'll tell you. Chips were down. Couldn't afford to lose.
Could you see the Navy shelling going on and all that, everything happening?
Oh gosh, yeah.
What does it look like from an airplane? I mean, I know the soldiers and the Navy guys are telling me that.
Mainly puffs of smoke. You couldn't hear it.
How fast are you flying?
At that situation of around 275 to 300 miles an hour, indicated airspeed.
And yet you could see the destruction. I mean, I know you've seen some stuff, but to me at that speed, it seemed like you would pass over it so fast. But you must have seen enough, or there must have been so much going on that you were aware. So you knew that it was the first waves were taking a lot of casualties. Obviously, you knew that.
You know, we had to be careful that we didn't strafe too close to them. So you had to keep progressively moving your firepower up onto the beach, up above the beach, and let them, our Navy and our troops and whatnot, have a chance to get up the cliff and get up there. You had to be careful.
When you went back to England to refuel or to rearm, were you getting reports about how things were going, or are you just assuming that things weren't going? Okay, so
No.
you weren't getting like that. And what else during those missions over? I mean, what else comes to your mind as far as that day? And I mean, you saw a lot of things. Did things start to improve, or what? I mean, what were you seeing? Anything different from the air every time you'd go over, or it's just the same thing that whole day?
Well, it wasn't so much that first day, except to do all you could to shoot up the Germans, whatever they had there, the best you could. And then the reports would start to come in from intelligence that this outfit, that outfit is knocked out and whatnot. But they're replenishing. The Germans are reinstituting, setting up machine gun nests and all that kind of thing. And you started to see the long lines of horse-drawn armament and whatnot coming up these roads and whatnot. All different stuff. But then our business was to strafe the hell out of them.
So you could see the German reinforcements coming in,
Oh, sure, yeah.
and you would go down with machine gun fire?
With the P-38, yeah.
How many machine guns were mounted on there?
Well, there's 450 calibers and one 20 millimeter, all firing out of the nose, concentrated. There was no need to figure where the P-47, the Thunderbolt, fires out of the wings, and so does the 51, and about 600, 700, 800 feet out, they cross. And that's where your best damage can be done to anybody you're shooting at. But the P-38 shoots straight ahead, whatever they hit, doesn't matter how far it is. It's concentrated effort. You just blow a tank right out of its tracks.
Tell me now, take me on a strafing run. I mean, when you saw these columns of people, you'd go down and start shooting, and would you see them falling, or what happened?
Men used to see the horses start to.
Take me on a run with you. You're going in. What are you hearing? What are you seeing? What are you doing?
Well, you're just shooting them up.
Are you getting orders to do this, or there's like somebody leading you in, or are you just taking this?
No, targets of opportunity is all. You figure your own. There's no way you get briefed back in England as to what you might see over there to shoot at 5 after 8, or my gosh, you have to pick your own targets.
Did that bother you at that time, or has there been a time in your life, or that's just part of your job? You got to do it. You had to do it.
How else are you going to win a war?
Yeah. Well, I haven't talked to too many pilots. That's why I'm asking, because I've had a lot of men that were on the ground that day and saw all the things happening, and I'll ask them questions too. But it's from a perspective that you have. I don't have this, so any information you have, that's interesting for me because. I've never done that. And I probably never would do anything like that because I don't have the opportunity. But what you did is incredible, and there were others flying with you. Did you lose any planes that day?
Not the first day. We lost some the next day, and then subsequent to that, we lost quite a few. We lost 6 in one flight across the harbor of Cherbourg.
Anti-aircraft shoot them down?
And aircraft, yeah.
Were they shooting at you on D-Day? I mean, were the Germans shooting back at you?
They were shooting more at the incoming Higgins boats and that kind of thing. They had their hands full, I'll tell you. So the more we could get them to get very confused as to who to shoot at, the better opportunity we had to succeed.
So you had a lot of training to do what you were going to do, right? I mean, you were ready. I mean,
we were ready, yeah.
Can you tell me what happened the night, or do you remember waking up that morning on D-Day, or were you already up? Did you sleep? Did they sound an alarm? Did you eat breakfast and get in your plane? What happened? Did you have a briefing?
Talk about sleep. Who sleeps when there's invasion, the big one they've been talking about? It's on. Your adrenaline is so pumped up that maybe you lay down, probably under the wing of the airplane, and just get some weight off your feet. You don't get much sleep. You don't need it.
Did they give you a meal? Did you eat before you went out?
Well, I don't remember. Everybody was so busy getting ready. I think there was some powdered eggs that they scrambled up if you wanted some, but a lot of us were too busy to go to the mess tent to even think. We were too busy getting our airplane ready to go and all that stuff.
So the order comes, we're going, you take off, and it's dark.
Oh, yeah.
It's night, or it's early morning.
Just getting dawn.
So your first run over the beach was like right at H hour, before H hour?
Well, it's just a little bit after H hour.
So the first troops had just started landing on the beach.
Yeah.
Why do you think Omaha Beach was so bad? I mean, Utah Beach had casualties, but why do you think Omaha Beach was so rough for those troops?
Well, there was a cliff there that's probably 60, 70 feet up to the top, and they had a hard time scaling that with ropes and everything. They had to go over to the east and go up a little swale, and the Germans were concentrating on that. But I don't know why we had so many of our Higgins boats and our concentration right on Omaha Beach at that time. But that's the way it was.
I know. Talking to a lot of these men, they said the machine gun fire on Omaha Beach was terrible. You couldn't really see the machine gun fire from the Germans, could you? I mean, you probably could see.
Well, you could see it with about every fifth or sixth bullet they fire is a tracer, and you can see those streaming out. But you got to remember there's about 5 in between those you don't see. And so you try to pick where they're shooting from and shoot them out.
Did you by chance see that movie Saving Private Ryan?
Sure did.
Do you think from the air looking down on the beach, do you think that what was portrayed in that beach landing was pretty accurate? I mean, they would show the Germans shooting and they'd show those Americans falling in the movie, you know. Could you kind of see it like that from up above, or was it like that?
Well, I think we saw more than that.
Yeah.
I think so much of that film that was shot by,
Spielberg?
well, the military photographers and gun film and whatnot, gun camera. Whenever we pull a trigger on our guns, the camera starts to run. So I don't know. There was a lot of film that was lost when down in the channel on the way back to England. The first couple of weeks of the real genuine film was not available for Saving Private Ryan.
So you think that movie was a
So it was
pretty...
dubbed in.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah. You know, your story is very interesting to me because the pilots I've talked to haven't really gone, or maybe they didn't see much that morning, but you know, you obviously were low enough in the area under the clouds.
Yeah.
And your story about looking for the cables is amazing. Now, those barrage balloons were designed to stop the Luftwaffe, right, from straight.
Yeah, right.
And of course, if they hit that, it would blow up. Is that right? Their plane would blow up if they were to hit one of those balloons.
Well, it depends on what part of the plane hit it.
Okay.
You can shear a wing off and you go down. Many other things.
I heard some of the sailors were cutting those cables because that was also giving the Germans a good target to blow up the boats out in the ocean. Those barrage balloons. Did you hear anything like that?
Well, the clouds would vary from hour to hour. Sometimes there'd be a clear spot in the clouds, but the Germans they had no aircraft firepower there to speak of.
I bet you.
We also had top cover with P-38s in case some of them come in while we were down here. And the next time you go over, you're probably playing top cover, and the other guys get a chance. Something like that. But I didn't see a German aircraft until probably 2 or 3 weeks after we got over and were operating and staying in France. And they came by the first night and strafed us. But they didn't shoot much. The moon wasn't that bright. And they didn't dare have any kind of running lights or anything on.
Go ahead and sit back again, Ken.
Yeah.
Okay. I want to ask you another question on the beach now. When you're going, again, in my mind, I'm trying to imagine, because I've been to Omaha Beach.
Yeah.
I went there last year, and I've seen some of those German bunkers are still there or whatever, you know.
That's right.
I know this question may sound silly, but just realize I don't know what it's like to be a fighter pilot, but when you're going over the beach and you're shooting at your targets, I mean, how are you feeling? I mean, is there any way of feeling anything? I mean, or are you know what I'm trying to say? You know, the kids today, they play these video games and they shoot. They can shoot planes, they can shoot soldiers, you know, and they scream and they blow up and stuff. But is it like that at all when you're really doing it in real life? I mean, what are you thinking about? Is it surreal for you, or are you very conscious of the fact of what you're doing? You know, I mean, how are you trained for that? How does that happen when you're actually doing that? Or is it just like any other job?
Well, it's combat.
Yeah.
It's not just any other job. It's a combat. And what you need to do is hit your target. And the German pillboxes over, we call them pillboxes, and they have a slit about 6 to 8 inches, 10 maybe, where their guns could go horizontal and up and down some. And they're in behind there. And when you're firing 50 caliber bullets and a 20 millimeter, which the fighter airplane, that's all they had, it's hard to get a bullet into that slot. And you certainly won't penetrate 6, 8 feet of concrete. So they were laughing up their sleeve maybe in there as listening to the bullets ricochet off the pillboxes until we started to use, now it's called napalm. Mix it in with one of the drop tanks and skip bomb that up into it, and fire goes in through that liquid on fire, almost like the 9/11. And it made it uncomfortable for the Germans in there. They came out too hot.
Were you reloading with the napalm after several missions over? You just decided,
Several missions before we
and so you
just got tired of it. And too hard to hit those slots.
Now explain that to me again. You said you skipped it in. How does that? What are you doing? You're firing it. It hits the ground and then skips right into the.
That's called skip bombing. You hit the beach, you know, with the drop tank early enough so that you can pull up and not hit the beach yourself, while that belly tank full of that juice skips bomb up into it.
And that was effective.
Yeah, quite effective.
So would they come out on fire or just come out screaming, or do you? Oh, probably both. Huh?
You can't hear them, but they come out. But
So,
there weren't too many of this because we didn't have enough of that gel to put in the tanks that time.
after D-Day, I mean, you took a break, right? I mean, you flew so many missions. You came back to England. You got out of your plane. Did you find yourself at a moment just relieved that the day was over, or were you still so pumped up, or were you tired, or were you talking with the other guys, or do you have any type of debriefing sessions? Or
Well, you always go into a debriefing after each mission,
okay.
and the intelligence people there, their job is to take down all the notes.
What do you remember saying, or what was asked you? I mean, and what did the other pilots talk about during that first debriefing after that initial assault on D-Day?
Well, just mainly answering questions from the intelligence officers. Do you think that you got your target? What did you hit? How many Germans were around that you didn't get to hit? How many of our soldiers are not quite making it onto the beach or getting trapped out there with their boats, you know? An impression of what it looked like. All you could give.
Do you remember what you told those guys about your experience? I mean, when they asked you those questions?
Yeah, seems
How could you tell how many were trapped or whatever? I mean, you just estimated
well, you can give a
how many people and all this and that. What were you telling those intelligence guys? Just in general, there's a lot of guys didn't make it. Is that kind of what you're saying, or?
you don't use the term "didn't make it" as much as there are quite a few casualties. And it's rough. They're not breaking through the barriers that the Germans had put up as quickly as we'd like. Something like that. And they're being dumped in water that's a little too deep, and have to wade in, and there's wetsuits and stuff getting filled up with water, and then you start to get out, and your weight then becomes heavier than when you're in the water. And things like that, and you're soaking wet.
Could you see any of the landing craft coming in actually get hit and blow up in the water? I mean, were you seeing that often, or every once in a while, or?
Never see them get blown up. You see them crashing into the barriers, and get stuck and have to unload over the edges and whatnot. Sometimes they couldn't get the end gate down, so they had to climb over, things like that. But you didn't have much time to study the situation when you're going at that speed.
Were you taking photographs, or just the film was running?
No, the only photographs you could take was from your gun camera film.
And a lot of that was lost, you said, so nobody ever got to see any of that then.
Well, not the gun camera film,
Oh, okay.
because when you go back to England, that's unloaded there and developed.
Oh, okay.
But the other people that were, what's his name on the end of that? what was his name? He was quite active.
Capra or no?
Not Ernie Pyle, but he's on the end of 60 Minutes. Rooney?
Yeah, Andy Rooney?
Andy Rooney, yeah. He was quite active over there. But his film got lost.
What was the hardest part of D-Day for you, or just in and around that time? Was there a hard part about your mission, or was it just, all the same, or was there a more difficult part for you?
No, it is all just as much incentive to keep going. We never had any real down in the dumps situation. Your adrenaline was too high.
Did you realize the significance of D-Day back then? I mean, did you realize how big this thing was? Obviously you did, huh? You knew it was big.
Well, we knew it was going to be big, but I don't know if anybody at that time at our level could realize what England was doing and Canadians and all of it put together. We were just one piece of it.
Were all the airplanes taking off from England early that morning that were dropping the 82nd 101st Airborne? Was that all went before you, right? Before you took off?
That was over with by the time we started, yeah. They did all night dropouts right around St. Mary-Glees.
Do you consider yourself a hero, Ken?
No.
No? Who do you think the real heroes of the war are, or were? Do you think there were any heroes, or?
No.
I
That's a wrong term to use when the country is at stake.
What in your mind now, fighting for your country, at that time, how did you feel as a military person? I mean, regarding Hitler and in Europe and everything that was going on, you obviously had a reason to be there and to defend your country. And at that age, what were your thoughts about that as far as why you were there and what you were doing? Did you wish you were back home? I mean, what were you thinking about during your military service there?
Well, everybody, including the people back home, no matter who they were, generally speaking, were feeling the same way about everything that time. We just got to get the Japs and the Nazis and so forth taken care of.
How about looking back now? It's 60 years later. It's, this summer is the 60th anniversary of D-Day. In retrospect now, from a historical standpoint, how important was D-Day?
Well, I think D-Day, I don't know if you would be very pleased today to interview me in German, would you? Would you like to continue speaking English? We didn't want to lose this war. No way. Took a lot of casualties, but I firmly believe it was worth it.
What does freedom mean to you?
Well, I don't know how to define freedom, because I don't know what the opposite is. Never experienced it.
What would you tell young kids today, Ken? I mean, you fought in World War II. You see today's society. You see kids today taking our freedoms for granted a lot. They're not learning about World War II. If you had an opportunity to talk to the young kids today about freedom, World War II, or what have you, what would you tell a young kid? Maybe about how to live their lives regarding what we have in this country, how to be thankful for what we have. What would you say to a young person?
I think about the only way you would get a point across to them is to have them imagine and then give them an example, like I just did to you a moment ago. Which would you rather be speaking, German or Japanese or English. It's just a broad subject that to get them, these kids, with the program. And our culture is decaying. And I think probably during Caesar's time, it had the same problem. Decadence. So culture is going to pot.
Tell me, so I have this on camera now. Tell me the full title of your group and your rank and all that during World War II, during the D-Day time. What was your squadron? Give me the name and everything.
Well, the group was a 367th.
Bomber, fighter?
No, fighter group.
Okay, so it's 362nd Fighter Group.
367th
367th Fighter Group.
fighter group.
Okay.
And we had 3 squadrons in makes up a group. And we had a 392nd, 393rd, and a 394th.
Okay.
I was in the 394th.
United States Air Force.
United States Army Air Corps.
Air Corps. United States Army Air Corps.
Yeah.
Okay, I mistook that for the Air Force.
It wasn't Air Force then.
It's Air Corps, right, okay. So United States Army Air Corps.
Right.
Okay. What was your rank?
I was a second lieutenant when I went over there.
Okay, second lieutenant. Okay. Have you ever heard of a term, when I talked to the P-47 pilot, he told me about an incident on D-Day where he shot down a German aircraft, one of the few that was shot down, but he said what happened was the Germans shot down his buddy, and then they got him in like where they would circle around him. He called it like a mulberry or something. What was the word?
Luftbarrel.
Luftberry or
Yeah, Luftberry.
What's that exactly? When would you use that? Can you tell me about that?
Well, that's a tactic that you invariably get into when you're trying to get on the other guy's tail. And the one that can turn the tightest is the one that's going to get on the other one's tail.
Okay.
And it's one of the things with the P-38, you could turn quite tight. But I don't know where he had an occasion to shoot down a German that day.
Yeah, I thought that was odd too, but I heard there were several, but I don't know from who or what, but I don't know. Because there wasn't much going on that day.
Not much air battle.
I think I've covered everything I wanted to ask you. Anything you want to add about your experience around D-Day, or that I forgot to ask you? Anything come to mind that you want to share?
Well, you know, D-Day itself was like I've just described, but after we got over to France and got to settle in just about 2 miles from St. Mary-Église, and we gave a party for the orphan. And I have pictures of that and everything.
What was that about now?
There was about 40 orphan kids.
Oh, okay.
A lot of parents got clobbered.
Yeah, okay.
And the mayor of St. Mary-Église came out, and we pushed a couple 6x6 trucks back to back and had a little stage, and they put on a little show for these orphans, and we gave them candy and stuff like that. Had a nice little picnic.
St. Mary-Église.
Yeah. You were there, weren't you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you been back to France since the war?
Yeah, 2 or 3 times, but Eric and I were over there about 4 or 5 years ago, and had her stand right on top of one of the pillboxes there at Omaha Beach.
You went there, yeah. Did you go there on the anniversary or just some other time during the year?
No, it's just another occasion.
Yeah.
But we had a French people that I find looking around for the missing aircraft. And they're about in their 40s. They're starting a museum and whatnot.
I want to ask you one more question. It's kind of a follow-up to one I've already asked you. So if you don't want to answer it, that's fine, okay? Don't feel like you have to. But you had mentioned, and I asked you about, you said you saw the columns of the Germans forming or whatever coming in to reinforce or whatever. From the air you could see them coming in. Is that what you said? You could see groups of people coming towards the beach?
Right.
Or
Well,
supplies?
coming towards their last lines that they had.
Oh.
'Cause we had already pushed them in a mile or two. So they were coming up to save their positions.
So when they heard you coming, did they take cover? Or you said when you started shooting at them that you said the cows started jumping, or what did you tell me? You didn't finish that story. Was the cows? You said the cows were jumping out of the way, or
No, the horses.
oh, the horses. I'm sorry.
The horses were pulling the armament, cannons and stuff like that. I hated to shoot up horses, but you had to do something.
But would they try to take cover, or did they just?
Well, when a P-38, you can't hear it coming initially. They've had it by the time we start shooting. Then the ones that didn't get hit jump off and try to hide in the hedgerows and get out of that little. Most of the roads over there were tree lanes on each side, and you had to go right down those lanes, and it's pretty fantastic to see, I tell you.
Was it like you see in the movies? Everybody just kind of scattering and falling. I mean, is it you know how the movies?
That's how it is. Yeah.
I've seen several movies, I guess, like that. I'm sure you got some pictures of the P-38
Yeah,
there. So.
sure do.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to stop this for right now, but I want.